Assalamualaikum and good greetings. So today we'll be watching a video titled Best of Penn Jillette on Religion. Now I have watched two videos of Ricky Gervais on religion, and from the same channel there's a video by of Penn Jillette on religion as well. So yeah, we have seen from a comedian, now we will see from a magician. I'm interested to see his point of view, and without further ado, let's watch.
I think skepticism and atheism are, which I believe are the same, are which many people disagree with. I believe are really, really important because you cannot have community, you cannot have love unless you have a shared reality. And anything that comes from within, any revelation that comes from within, by definition can't be shared. So what science did for us mostly was science gave us a reality that we could share and talk about. So if I feel the presence of my dead mother with me, that's personal, that's poetic. But if I'm going to actually talk about what death means, we have to go with things that we've proven. And proof has been given such a hard, cold kind of connotation. Whereas another way to say proof is just something you can share. It's another way to say love. If I believe there's a God in the universe and I can't prove it, I have said nothing to the community. If I think there's such a thing as black holes and I can give some evidence to that, that's a way of showing love for other people. Now, magicians are this very small, little, unimportant corner. You know, the silly people dealing with epistemology. You know, we're the ones that jokingly deal with how one ascertains truth. But for our little part, I think that showing that you can artistically deal with fantasy while in reality doing tricks is the most important lesson that human beings can learn, the difference between fantasy and reality. And whether you're taught that by the Three Stooges, who were, when I was young, the best teachers of the difference between fantasy and reality, or whether you're taught that by video games, which nowadays is how my children learn about fantasy and reality, is realizing that they can die in a video game, just not really dying. That difference between fantasy and reality is the difference between personal space and shared space, and that line between personal space and shared space is the definition of love, and in a very, very, very small way, that's what you say.
Okay, yeah, I do think that there are many religions that is more of just internal, right? It's not a shared reality. We are not talking about the real reality, the real existence of the world. We are just talking about what you feel inside. And I do acknowledge there are religions like that, but there are religions that do not claim to be as such, meaning that religion that claims that it is about reality, right? For example, Islam, or I think Christian, etc., right? Meaning that where the claim is that there's a creator that creates this universe, which is the reality, is shared reality. It's not something that, you know, I feel, right? And it is talking about that. And in the Quran, of course, the evidence, because he stated about, you know, if it's a shared reality, there should be evidence that can be understood and accepted, you know, not just from your own personal feeling. It's real. So Islam claimed to be that, and if you look at the Quran, the evidences, the proof that it pointed out, or it bring forth, is in that nature, right? Look at the nature where everyone can see the same reality and come to the same conclusion. It's not about, you know, I feel, I see it in my dream. It's not about that. It's about the reality, right? So yeah, I do share the sentiment that the truth should be that, a shared reality, right? Meaning something that everyone can evaluate at the same time and make conclusion. Because if you are talking about, but I see it in my dream, I feel it inside me, that's you, right? If I don't if I don't feel the same thing, then is it your truth different than my truth? But I see it in my dream. Okay, but what about that other guy that see in his dream something else, right? So if your truth conflict with his truth, then what is the truth, right? So those things, because I think from some atheist perspective, that religion, because there are religion like that, and there are people of religion is like that. When we say, how do you evaluate that what you hold on to is the truth? The answer is always things like, well, that's inside you. How can I appreciate that? Should I just trust you? And right, so yeah, I share the same sentiment. But for example, Islam, I from a Muslim perspective, I will talk from the Islamic perspective, right? It hold on to that worldview, and it bring forth the evidence from that worldview, right? It is shared reality. It's not just, you know, just something inside you that only you can understand.
The only real argument against religious terrorism is to try to share the reality of the world. How is that? Yeah, why is that going to stop people from blowing up buildings just
I
a few
think
miles
if
from where
we
we're
share reality, if we talk about things we can prove. The problem with talking about faith is you hit this wall. Why do you believe Jesus Christ is our Lord? Do you have evidence? I feel it in my heart. If you move, I feel it in my heart, out of the equation, terrorism goes away, completely goes away. You might have military events. I think my people should be free, and here's the reason why. Here's our lands that are occupied. But the idea that, you know, we're already there. I mean, this is the part that no one ever talks about. If you go to the center of the Bible Belt, and you have a fundamentalist Christian judge, and all the lawyers and all the jury are fundamentalist Christians, and they believe completely with their heart, and I'm not doubting them in any way, and someone gets on the witness stand and says, I killed my whole family because God told me to. It's astonishing to me that nobody goes, well, let's look into that. You know, we have guilty, we have not guilty, we have not guilty by reason of insanity, we do not have not guilty because God told me to. And that's one of the things that I'm obsessed with in this book, is the fact that not only do I not believe, but how can that judge read the Bible and see Abraham being willing to kill his son because God told him to, see burning bushes appearing to people, hear people dropping all their worldly possessions and going on to follow.
staying clear of linen and wool blends.
Yeah,
To Leviticus,
exactly. What side of the tree you defecate on, and so on. How can they see all that? And then a woman who clearly believes that God told her to do something is completely and utterly dismissed.
Comes to this.
Okay, I cannot talk on behalf of Christians or Christianity, but the examples that we mentioned, because I'm not sure how it is portrayed in the Bible, right? But the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the command to slaughter his son, right, Ismail. Of course, that is in Islam, and he bring I'm not sure whether you can call it a dilemma or something, right? But if you can accept that, for example, in this case, Ibrahim get the command, and he believed that the command is from Allah, from the Creator, from God, and he want to proceed with it. How is that different than someone that, you know, truly believe that God says something to them to kill the family, etc., right? So why do you say that, okay, wait, why is this person doing this, and, you know, whatever he have in his mind is not a justified answer to his action, and so if I criticize this, why I accept Ibrahim, right? Now, going back to the initial point about shared reality, right? The real shared reality that everyone can attest or evaluate it, right? For that person that claims that, you know, there's no way to actually prove or show or illustrate or justify that is actually from God, that can be understood and appreciated and accepted by everyone else, because it's only in his mind or her mind, right? But when you go to the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam, it's not like suddenly he got that you know, idea or what he called revelation from inside, but the fact that the creator of the universe is established, and accepted, and it's a reality outside, not just something that he suddenly believe, right? Inside, it's from outside, and that the connection in terms of the conversation or communication line is already established outside as well. It's a shared reality. So I think if you answer that one first, the first foundation, right, that is mentioned in this video, about it should be a shared reality, not just someone what you believe inside that you cannot even illustrate or prove to other people outside. It doesn't start there. It's establishing that first, and then what comes next is within that context, right? Just like when we talk about the reality, right? And then we establish that, okay, the earth is not flat. It's something like that, right? A sphere, or almost a sphere. And then what we discuss within that realm, right, is already based on that the fact that this world is a sphere, right? Meaning that in Islam, I think there's a video recently in Malaysia about the discussion of Qiblah, the direction of the prayer, and the determination of the prayer times, etc., where the Muslim scholars already established that the world, the earth is like that, and hence the calculation is based on that. It would be different if someone start with assuming it is flat. All the calculation, etc., will be different, right? So the discussion of, you know, the command that someone believe God says to them, if you cannot first establish that the God is within the shared reality, then everything else is just like, right? So that's how I view it.
Particular premise. God, no. You anger me.
Do I really?
Yes.
Do I really anger you?
You do. Because I think it's a deliberately provocative stance you take.
No, not
It's
at all.
designed to annoy and agitate people who have a sincere belief.
I don't think so at all. You won't find in this book anywhere any attacks on people. I mean, one of the things, I don't know if you've seen the Book of Mormon, Matt Stone and Trey
Yeah,
Parker,
it's brilliant.
which they describe as a love letter to religion from an atheist. And that's one of the things Matt said about it. And a lot of this talking, I've been talking to Matt and Trey for years about this, and when they did the Richard Dawkins episode of South Park, one of the things we talked about is that idea of bitterness and the idea of the anger that comes from that. And I am a huge fan of proselytizing. I am a huge fan of speaking your mind. The only way we can share the universe, the only way we can share humanity, is by talking very strongly about what we believe.
You are the chief atheist out there. How did you get here? How did we get here?
Well, let me ask you, how did we get here?
I believe in this superior being, a God.
Of course.
And therefore,
And then
the questions which always baffle atheists, the hard reality of life, I believe there is something greater out there. There's a greater entity, which is a spiritual being
But what is
that allows comprehension on a scale we could never understand.
If it's a comprehension,
but if you don't believe in that
if it's a
superior being,
comprehension-
what do you think happened?
If it's comprehension on a scale that we can't possibly understand, aren't you done? Why do you need to label that as something that's God or something?
Because I've never heard an atheist explain to me...
Why isn't there a humility to saying, I don't know?
Because I never hear an atheist give me any answers to how did we get here and what happens at the end of our lives.
But the answer to something, saying we can't understand it, is not an answer.
Right, so how do you think we got here?
I don't know.
And what do you think happens when you die?
I think nothing. I think
Where do you go?
there's no evidence at all. Where do you go?
Where do you go?
I mean, I think
When you die, you must be terrified of death, because that's it,
Not
right?
at all, not even slightly.
But what do you think happens to you?
How scared are you of 1890? Does 1890 terrify you?
1890?
1890, yeah.
What are you on about?
You weren't alive. You weren't alive then, right?
No.
You weren't alive. You didn't exist in any way.
No.
Is that a horror to you?
No.
So why is 2090 any worse than that?
I'm not
When you
horrified by
won't
any
be
thought
around?
of dying, because I believe that you
Me
go
neither.
onto
None
you
at
go
all.
onto a celestial place, which is wonderful.
And
But for you,
where's your-
atheists,
where's
it must
your
be,
evidence of
it
a
must be
celestial
miserable.
place?
Well, because I come back to the issue of creation.
Right.
Where
The
do
issue of
atheists?
creation,
Where
all,
do
all you
atheists?
have answered with the issue of creation
Right, it takes
is you've
you-
answered your answer to. My answer is I don't know, and your answer is something
But
beyond
you cannot
comprehension.
write a
Aren't those
book.
the same answer?
You cannot write a book.
Okay, based on that conversation, I think that's it's Morgan, right? What's the name? Full name? Matthew Morgan or something. He mentioned several times something beyond comprehension or something. I'm not sure what is meant by that. If it's we cannot comprehend how massive it is, for example, that's one thing. But if you're saying we cannot comprehend that, even logically we cannot make sense of it, that's a different thing. From Islamic perspective, right, we can see that the vast universe, the you know, the majestic of the creator of this vast universe is beyond comprehension, in the sense that we cannot wrap our head around it. Yes, we do accept that, right? But if it means that even logically we cannot explain it, or we cannot connect the dots, I don't think that's accurate, or that's correct. Because how we get to the conclusion is by connecting the dots. It's not just like, wow, we cannot think about this and suddenly God's come about, right? It's logically concluding there must be a creator. So I'm not sure, because in that conversation, from just that conversation, logically, meaning I do not have any conclusion yet, I would be siding with the atheists in that conversation if it goes like that, right? That's just me.
They will stand up and they will ask, if there is no God, what stops you from raping and killing everyone you want to rape and kill? What stops you from doing that? And my answer is always, you're absolutely right. I have raped and killed every single person I want to rape and kill. And that number is 0, you evil mother! It's 0! It's a goose egg! And if your number is a positive integer, sign up for prison! Get the out of our society! Because morality is more important than God. And we know that because you stupid motherfuckers say the sentence, God is good. And if morality is not more important than God, you don't get to say that. It doesn't mean anything. Unless there's some good that we believe in, some morality, then you can't say God is good. Then you just say God, whatever he does is okay. And according to the Bible, it kind of is. He does everything bad. So no.
Okay. Now I do notice some people from religious background make that argument that he mentioned in the beginning, right? Where he said that, well, if there's no God or something like that, then what stops you from killing, etc., etc. Now, I think that argument, from my perspective, is flawed because now, if we want to talk about the objectivity of morality, etc., that's one thing, right? Meaning that if there's no, without something that make the standard, that creates the standard, that sets the standard, right? Meaning, how do we gauge which is good and bad? That discussion, I think, is a valid one, right? Because then we can understand. But normally when suddenly it extends to, if we do not have that, people will start killing or raping, etc., etc., etc. That is already accusing people of something, and I think that's a problem, right? Just assuming that people who do not believe in God will start to do evil things is a problematic statement. And when you attach the two, that part actually nullified the valid discussion earlier, where how do you gauge what is good and bad? Do we comprehend every single angle and aspect of if you have cause and effect, right? Meaning, do you comprehend every single aspect of effect of every single action, for example, right? Interest, for example, interest from loan. Is it good or bad, for example? Now, from those who look at a certain perspective, it is good. It's for the economy, blah, 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 right? But some people can see also the negative impact on certain people. Of course, it may have a very good impact on this group of people, but a very bad impact on this group of people. So how do we say then is it good or bad, right? Meaning, if you only notice one part of it, you might see that it's clear-cut good. But if you notice the other part, then it's not as straightforward as that, right? So if we go and deeper in this discussion, do you know the implication of every single thing, right? Because sometimes we say, no, why is it bad? Because, and then you can trace the because, blah blah blah, right? It is only limited to a certain perspective. Do you consider as well the implication to your children, your neighbor, blah 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 blah, the society, right? Meaning, and then how do you weigh whether it's good or bad? So all this discussion will lead to people can agree that, okay, without, you know, for example, in the case that the creator that sets the standard, or, you know, the weighing scale, etc., then we cannot really, generally speaking, for certain things that seems clear, we can agree on, right? But for example, we can agree, everyone can agree maybe killing is bad, right? But if someone kills someone, etc., right, and we know, okay, this guy already committed evil to this group of people, how to punish this? Should it be punished? Is it death penalty or fine or whatever, right? What is good or is bad in that case? What is the implication of that, right? So that discussion will be not as clear as just initially say his action of killing this guy is bad. So is the government killing him as a punishment good or bad, etc., 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 right? So then we can establish the fact that, okay, so with no external from the creator input on what is good or bad, how do we actually, you know, come to a conclusion that is agreed upon in the real world, right? So that's one thing. But when you contaminate that aspect, we suddenly jump into, without, you know, the standard from God, everyone will do evil, etc. That's a totally different thing. And when people suddenly lump it together, from the atheist perspective, for example, they assume that there's not a standalone valid discussion there. When you already attach some accusation there, right? Meaning that implied that, you know, you're atheist, right? So then what's stopping you? Meaning you already attach it to some form of accusation that is might not be true, or in most cases not true at all, I think, right? Most people, most morally upright people, even though they do not believe in anything, you know, rape and killing is not the norm, I would say, generally speaking.
Did you have a particular Damascus Road experience where that became clear to you, or is this the work of gradual rationality?
That's one of the things that's so interesting about atheism. People have epiphanies to become religious. People become religious at horrible bottom times in their life, cry out to Jesus under great stress. You don't hear that story in atheism very often. It's usually gradual. It usually comes from reading. It usually comes from discussions. It usually comes from introspection. And for me, it was being in high school and reading the Bible. I mean, I suggest to anyone who's looking for the road to atheism, just read the Bible. By the time you get to about the middle of Leviticus, you're out.
That's right. and you also might give up reading as well. Yeah. That's when Ayn Rand starts looking really inviting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what he said, I assume some of the things that I have heard of, etc., because I have never read on myself throughout the Bible, right? So I'm not sure what is written in that portion that he said. At that point, you're already out, right? But it is interesting because I think some of those who comment on my video when I say, so how do, because they always come with good intention, as of course, you know, you seems like a nice guy, please consider Christianity. So I asked, is there any video that may present something that I have never thought of or considered before, etc. And some actually answered, no, just start with reading the Bible. So I sincerely am interested, based on that comment as well by Penn Jillette. If I am not a Christian, not brought up of Christian or from Christian background, and I just read the Bible from the cover to cover, generally speaking, would you think that I will embrace Christianity, or will see that wait, what is this talking about? Meaning at any portion, for example, and says like, no, right? What do you think? Especially for those who Christian that knows whichever portion that is being criticized by others as problematic. What do you think about that? So, yep. That's the video for today. It is interesting. I have always found that people like this, meaning, because from their perspective, they are not. This is my take on it, right? People like this, they are not coming from a place where it is from negative intention. Right? They sincerely believe that, for example, the religious people are duped or victims, etc., etc., and they are talking from a sincere place. Unfortunately, they haven't come across the proof, etc. So when they have a certain level of intellect, but unfortunately, they are in that place right now, I have always found what they say to be interesting, because it is, for me, it's intellectually stimulating, right? So even though I have a different conclusion than them. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you next time.